Alright, we're going to start sewing on our fabric. So I'm going to start with the skirt. And there are two skirt panels plus a little bit extra. So I'm going to have it close at the back. So I put the two big ones in the back and the small one up front. So there won't be a center front seam. But I kind of wanted the front side seam, basically, so I could access my pocket. And so I did leave a little slit right here. That's for the pocket. And what I think I'm going to do after I sew the skirt together, I'm going to dump all the fabric in the washing machine to kind of give it a good rinse, because I have noticed the dye is kind of crocking just a little bit on my hands. Let's see if I can get it to kind of settle. Afterwards, we'll hem it, which we're going to use a facing, balance the skirts, do the gauging, basically do all the skirty bits, and then we'll work on the bodice last. Alright, so gauging's put in, we sew the skirt together. We're working on the facing right now. So I have got in my linen for the facing. I just have to decide how long of the facing I want. I'm going to do it somewhat shorter, perhaps cut it 5 inches. I should only need approximately 3 panels of this, I think. Alright, step number 1, sewing together the facing bits. And we're just going to use a very lazy running stitch because this is just a facing. I do have a whole video on facings and what they're used for and different ways of putting them on and different ways of finishing them. And I'll link that above. The short form is that it's basically a dirt protector for the hem. You use scrap fabric, usually in a brown color because it hides the dirt, and you stitch it onto the hem, and then whenever it gets all nasty and gross, you just replace it with new scrap fabric. So I don't tend to put much effort into them since they're supposed to be basically disposable. So I have the right side of the hem here, and we're going to take the right side of facing. And we're going to just pin it edge to edge. So now we're going to take about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, because that's what I allowed for when I cut the skirt. And I do a running stitch because, again, these are supposed to be disposable after a while. So I find that doing a back stitch is a little overkill. But I have not taken apart an original to see if it was back stitched or running stitch. At which point we have to turn it over and do another stitch, and we're done with the skirt. Facing is stitched on. So now I'm going to do an iron both layers, just one direction. It doesn't really matter which direction, I just usually choose towards the facing. And I did choose to leave the edge raw. I mean, technically this is a washable gown. It's not silk or wool. But as with most dresses, I'll probably just spot clean it. So I didn't feel like it was necessary to actually finish that edge. A lot of originals I've seen have left it raw, so it's not a big deal. Alright, and here's where we began. Alright, so just like with the normal facing, lift it up and make sure that line is pretty even. Just put a smidge of the fashion fabric poking out on this back side. There we go. Pin that in place. 'Cause we'll stitch that down in just a moment. And then we'll feel like we're still like in the middle of the skirt, but we're not. We're almost done with it because we've already had the gauging and stuff done. I'm so accustomed to doing this first and then doing the gauging. But I had to wait for lining fabric to come in. I've got a little bit of excess in there. Sometimes that happens. That's okay. I tend to not worry about it. I just fold it over, pin it in, I'll sew right over it. And it'll just magically fit. There'll be a tuck there, but this is the inside of the skirt and it's a removable facing, so who cares? Alright, I'm going to stitch that down with kind of a staggered running stitch, which I'll show you in a moment. And then we'll be done with the skirt. We can move on to the bodice. Alright, cutting to pieces. So, I've already cut the blue parts because I needed to re-dye them because of dyeing issues. There was far too much fabric to dye, so I ended up having to do the bodice pieces and the skirt separately and just exactly time how much time I put them in the dye bath. And I got them all pretty equally blue, the same shade-ish. Anyway, so I didn't get that filmed because the camera battery had died at that point, and it was like midnight, and I didn't feel like waiting for it. So I went ahead and cut the pieces and designed the dress. But now we're ready to cut lining. Basically, it's going to be a gathered front bodice with a waistband and a back closing bodice. And that's the gist of it. But I do have a bodice piece here. This is the front. Again, kind of the bias. I'm going to do a front house this weekend to get fitted. So I need to sew this together pretty quickly. And usually I like to do this in like actual real steps. But I think for this particular video, we're going to get everything done up to the fitting, and then I'll get fitted this weekend. And then next month's video will be everything up to, or past the fitting. So let's go ahead and pin this together like we're going to sew it. Which I guess really is the next step. Okay. Do I want piping up the center front? That's a question. The answer is I don't want to do piping up the center front, but I think it would look really nice. That's my answer. So probably, okay, let's just do the back then first. Okay, apparently this did not get the waistband cut off. This one obviously did. Okay. It's not a problem necessarily, it's just I wasted some fabric. There wasn't any waistband that big. Yeah, roughly 2 inches. And about 2 inches off the bottom of his back. Okay. There's that. And then up here, we'll sew it together at the shoulders. Which it looks like I didn't cut out the neckline of the back either. So it looks like I actually cut the piece I wanted to of the front, but then I just cut out my regular back. Probably because I was in a rush. That's okay, that can be fixed. I was thinking that looked really, really narrow. Okay, so there's one half of it. That will get stitched together with a very small and very neat back stitch. And this piece, so this piece needs to go this way now. So I need to make sure I have a right and a left bodice. It's never fun when you do a lot of handwork only to realize that you have 2 right sleeves or something else is weird. So I cut a plain bodice first, and then I realized that nope, I wanted the gathered bodice. And so instead of just modifying the one I already cut, I just recut a new one. And I just didn't feel like taking it out of the dye bath, so I just went ahead and dyed the first one. And apparently I got it mixed up with my other stuff, but this is the right bodice right here. to make at least a small amount of piping tonight so I can get the center front stitched together, at which point we are ready for a fitting. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is just baste the center front together, because it'll be easier to take out and do the darts that way, but I need it put together so I can do the darts, but it's going to be easier to stitch the darts if it's not fully attached yet. So you know, we're not even going to worry about that yet. We're just going to baste the center front together. So let's go ahead and pin it together, and I'll just do a loose running stitch on it, and hopefully it'll hold for a fitting. Okay, I save this so I can get this exactly even to the other side. Alright, so there's side number 2. We'll pin the center front together like we discussed. Alright, now that's a full bodice. At least pinned together. Alright, I will start stitching on that, and hopefully we can get this done pretty quickly.